Here's my reaction to the England squad where 7 huge names have been dropped by Gareth Southgate. We're going to react to each and every one of them. And we're going to look at the overview of the squad that remains as well. And I think it is a massive indicator, rightly or for wrongly, of how Gareth Southgate is going to approach Euro 2024, because there's a lot of midfielders, there's a lot of forwards and strikers that have been included. 3 strikers have been included, and a load of centre-backs trimmed. I will break down my opinion on that. I think if you watch the channel long enough, you can probably tell how I feel about that. Certainly a few big names that have been cut. But we're going to talk about each player individually and the overview of the squad. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe and let me know what you think in the comments down below. James Trafford is the obvious one and the easiest pick that Gareth Southgate's probably had ever to trim. But a young and promising keeper nonetheless that has been involved in very successful England sides at under 21 level. So it's just one for the future. No qualms there. Another one that no real issue is obviously Quansah. That was announced earlier in the day, and I think it was fantastic he was included by Gareth Southgate because he's a player that has got the physicality. He's good enough on the ball. He's now got experience at winning things at Liverpool Football Club a season on from being on loan at a League One club, and that is fantastic. This kid's trajectory is unbelievable, Quansah. Honestly, he's so good. But I think it was just a step too far to be playing tournament football and taking up a role in the squad yet. So absolutely fine with that. Jarrad Branthwaite is a real disgrace to leave him out. Unless there's something I don't know about, injuries or anything like that, I think it's a real poor decision from Gareth Southgate. There are obviously one or two ways of looking at how you should approach, as an England fan, talking about this England squad. Pure, unbridled optimism, or an element of critique and criticism. And I think you have to have the latter, especially as someone that is vocal as I am about England and how much I want England to do well and how poor England have been in the last 50 years, 60 years. This is the wrong decision. I'm not going to sit here and say, super optimistic. Branthwaite has to go. If you're going super, super experienced and you want your back line full of 30-year-olds and late 20s and pure experience, then you can get rid of Harry Maguire. You cannot get rid of Harry Maguire. So Branthwaite is the next step of evolution for England. Quansah is just before Branthwaite. Quansah needs a couple of seasons in the Premier League before he's starting England games, in my opinion. Maybe even one under Arne Slot. Branthwaite has already had a season where he's one of the best defenders in the league last season. He might be a Man United centre-back if the rumours are to be reported to be true, or a Chelsea centre-back. He's at that level in a few months' time. So he's at that level. Already he's at a massive club in Everton, doing very, very well. He would complement John Stones massively with his mobility, with his positional awareness. The fact that he's out of the squad, unless there's an injury I don't know about, is really poor. It might even be worse than Super Jack Grealish getting taken out, that I'll talk about in a minute. But he is the future of England. If John Stones is injured, he is the closest to a John Stones-like centre-back that we've got, in my opinion. And you're going to talk about Lewis Dunk. Lewis Dunk, part of one of the worst defences in the Premier League last season, porous, a very good player, Lewis Dunk. I like Lewis Dunk a lot, but he hasn't been smashing out the park like Branthwaite has this season. I'm sorry. And he's at the age category where if he goes and he doesn't play, he's not getting any experience because he's in that kind of late 20s, 30s age category. He isn't going to take the next England manager forward at 2026 World Cup, is he? So Lewis Dunk being kept ahead of Branthwaite based on a couple of extra seasons in the Premier League and a lower ceiling than Branthwaite is wrong, in my opinion. Joe Gomez, Mark Gahey, fantastic, super gas for Gahey. There were people out there thinking Gahey would get trimmed, and that was wrong, in my opinion. I think it will be a Gahey and John Stones back four with Kyle Walker and Luke Shaw if he's fit. And obviously, there'll be rotation in the group stages. Really, if you're an England fan watching this, the group stages are completely irrelevant. It doesn't matter. We are now at the point now where England have to win a trophy. So when we break down England, we have to be looking at the 11s that are going to reach the round of 16, the quarterfinal, the semi-final, and actually show up, dominate the ball, don't hide from it, don't be too defensive, try and control games of football, and that is the back four that will be first choice, in my opinion. Lewis Dunk should not be first choice centre-back alongside John Stones. Harry Maguire has to be in this England squad if he's fit. Now, obviously, there's the calf strain that I've heard about, and that's fair enough. If he wasn't fit enough to play for England at any point in the tournament, then fair enough. if he was fit enough to play at the latter stages of the tournament, like Luke Shaw apparently is, because he's been included, like he was in Euro 2021, he was brought in at the latter stages of the group stage, and he was absolutely fantastic, Harry Maguire. Harry Maguire has to be kept in the England squad. So I don't know enough about his medical condition. Obviously, I'm not a doctor. If he's completely ruled out of the England squad, then fair enough. What can you say? Branthwaite should have been the guy that replaced him, if that makes sense. Trimming him, Quansah, and Branthwaite is a lot of risk, in my opinion, because defensively we're so poor. And I know you don't rotate centre-backs in the same way you rotate inside forwards and strikers, but especially if you want to go to a back three, a back five, we are now really, really limited. I would have trimmed Quansah. I like him a lot, but I would have trimmed him for Branthwaite. That's just how I see it. I think Branthwaite's had a better season. I think he's a lot more versatile than Quansah as a centre-back. I know Quansah can play right back and centre-back, but what he can do as a centre-back, I think Branthwaite can do a lot more physically. I think he's smarter on the ball. He's been part of an unbelievable defence. I know Quansah's been there as well. He deserves his roses, 1,000,000%. I just prefer Branthwaite. That's just how I see it. The midfielders is really interesting because we've now ended up potentially in a situation where Gareth Southgate has 2 wild cards in his midfield. And that is Adam Wharton and Kobbie Mainoo. Both fantastic midfielders. Both are not going to start for England. Again, as I said earlier in the video, it's not about how we get past Serbia in the group. It's really not about that. It's about playing France. It's about playing Germany. How is this England side going to line up? And I think Gareth Southgate is going to struggle to get Wharton and Mainoo anywhere near this 11 alongside Rice, Foden, Bellingham, etc. But there's one that stands out for me, and that is Adam Wharton. I think he was absolutely exceptional in the Bosnia game. I think he's been absolutely exceptional for the last 6 months. I know he doesn't have a lineage of international or even Premier League football that is very long. But sometimes I see a player and I just think he makes everyone else around him better. Now, Kobbie Mainoo was the player that I was talking about 6 months ago when he burst onto the scene, thinking he was that guy. And I don't quite think he's that guy. I know it's ridiculous saying that because there are some managers out there that would literally start Kobbie Mainoo in any England midfield. He's a little bit too explosive going forward. He's got a great eye for a goal. I think, honestly, the only role that goes in this side, and this is why Calvin Phillips, I always thought Calvin Phillips, if he'd done well at West Ham, this is months ago, if he'd done well at West Ham, he would have had a big role to play in this England side because England need a sitter. England need a pure sitter. Someone that reminds me of Torsten Frings for Germany. Someone that just sits there like a Gareth Barry, sits there completely flat like a Michael Carrick. How many generations of England fans have left at the quarterfinal stage of a tournament heartbroken by the fact that we didn't integrate Paul Scholes or Michael Carrick, the closest thing that we had to a Xavi, the closest thing that we had to a Busquets or a Pirlo, that could get us far in the tournament by keeping the ball when it's super hot and we're all sweaty and the intensity is crazy at the tournament and players are absolutely shattered. A player that can just give you an extra 5 minutes on the ball, an extra 10 minutes just to ease off. And Adam Wharton is that guy more than Kobbie Mainoo. That's just my opinion. So I'm absolutely gassed that he's in the side. A lot of people would have trimmed him out of their squad. Curtis Jones, I don't mind that at all. I don't think we quite play in a system where Curtis Jones, you get the most out of him. He's not a sitter. He's not a defensive midfielder. He's a sort of central midfielder that runs between the lines. There's no space for him in the side. I'm not too fussed about that, to be honest with you. I'll leave Jack Grealish to the end. James Maddison, not too fussy either. I think the last few months been absolutely poor. And that's not always his fault. Sometimes it takes a long time to come from an injury. So you can't blame James Maddison's form. Sometimes I think he's done well enough for Spurs. I think he's been a good transfer to Spurs. But being a good Premier League number 10, and he's a pure number 10, really. I don't see him as a winger. I don't want him anywhere near the wing for England, really, when look at some of the players that have been left in this squad. So as a pure number 10, he's a bit of a luxury, and it's 1,000,000% right. It was interesting in his little press release saying that he's been featured in all the Euro 2024 kind of qualifying games. That's just the nature of the beast. England have to win this tournament. It's not about freeloaders, and this squad is so important. I'm not saying James Maddison's a freeloader, but the squad has to be trimmed. It has to be lean. It has to be maximized and utilized to the highest standard to get England a result. And James Maddison would not contribute, in my opinion. But maybe that's harsh. Jack Grealish, this one kills me. I'm probably the biggest Jack Grealish fan on YouTube. I think this makes absolutely zero sense. I'm sorry, again, unless there's an injury that he was a little bit rusty at the end of the season for Man City. I get that 1,000,000%. If he's not fit, then fine. But he obviously is fit because he's in the squad in the first place. There isn't a player that can draw a foul. How many times have we seen in international football free kicks, corners, penalties that can get a side a result, that can get a side up the pitch 15, 20 yards? There's not a single player in that England squad that can draw fouls, that can beat a man. He can't beat 2 or 3 men. I'm not saying Jack Grealish is prime, CR7. I'm not saying that. But he can beat a man and then give the ball off. He can beat a man, take a side 5, 10 yards up the pitch. Why is he being trimmed out the side? He's at least the 26th man. At least he's the 26th man. It's absolutely crazy. He's had a poor 3 or 4 months. He hasn't scored many goals. It's hard to argue that he should be starting for England like he was at 2021 when Luke Shaw was overlapping. Remember that goal for Germany where he created that beautiful little bit of space? Luke Shaw whips it in. Harry Kane with a bullet header. It's unbelievable stuff. He doesn't deserve to be starting for England, but he does deserve to be in the squad because if anything happens on that left side, we've got no pace with Rashford and we've got no intricate control of the left-hand flank like Jack Grealish brings. Gordon brings pace and explosivity and this element of the unknown, so I don't mind that. I'm not saying that he shouldn't be in the squad, but you look at anyone else on the left side, Eze is a left winger, not for me. I love Eze, but I think Eze doesn't go, and I think Jack Grealish has to go as a left winger. And if we're playing against Germany, we're playing against France, something's happened to Gordon, it's a massive statement for Gordon, unless it's a pure Phil Foden on the left vibe with Gordon as backup to Phil Foden. And that's where it's poor because Phil Foden's not a left winger. So it's getting into these rabbit holes that is really frustrating about this England squad. There are 2 or 3 big mistakes in this England squad. Sorry, there are. So those are the players that have been left out. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. There are some observations. Now, whatever you think about the selection of the centre-backs that have been dropped, whether for right or for wrong, Harry Maguire, I think a lot of people will be rejoicing at that. It actually means that this idea of England going to a 5 with Trent tucked into a kind of wing position and spraying balls around, I think that goes out the window. I think we've thrown so many centre-backs away when I think you could easily have removed a couple of those forwards. The likes of, Ivan Toney as a third striker. I think it says to me that maybe England are thinking about 4 at the back, obviously. That 3 and the 5s are kind of gone now, as I just said. Is there a world where it's Harry Kane and Watkins? Is there a world where Ivan Toney is now back up to Watkins, who now starts more minutes than we previously expected? Does this allude to the fact that England want to blow sides away, play 2 strikers, a little bit how maybe Guardiola plays Alvarez and Haaland together, or De Bruyne high up the pitch with Phil Foden, with obviously Erling Haaland? Is that a world where Ivan Toney is now the first sub off the bench and Watkins and Kane is involved, and we're not playing certain players, and it doesn't make sense to me. I think you have to have only 1 striker in this England side because we've got so much quality midfield. But that's just how I see it as an observation, because we've got a lack of pace, we've got a lack of natural wingers. We've got Gordon, of course, and Saka cuts inside, but there's no one that can take anyone on the outside, and that is the initial observation for me. Does anything change in this 11? Let me know what you think in the comments down below. But my 11 would be, if it's France semi-final, it's still looking like Pickford in goal with Walker, John Stones. Mark Gahey now looks like the first choice centre-back. Obviously, if Harry Maguire can't even play, and that makes a lot of sense for me. If Lewis Dunk's starting against France semi-finals, quarter-finals, we're screwed in a big way. Luke Shaw left back, that makes a lot of sense for me. I like that. Need that pace, need that overlapping pace. And I don't think we've got enough of that in this squad, and that is a limitation, 100%. The midfield's interesting. I think it now looks more and more like Declan Rice in midfield. It looks like Adam Wharton in midfield for me, with Jude Bellingham as a free midfielder that can link up play, do the physical work off the ball, and pack the midfield. With Phil Foden coming off the left, Saka coming off the right and Harry Kane down the middle. Now, obviously, injuries can mitigate that. Form through the group stages could mitigate certain changes. And we've seen Gareth Southgate, particularly in Euro 2021, be very, very flexible with how many players start in group stage games. He likes to rotate almost throughout the whole squad. So clearly he sees a world where maybe by the third group stage game, you've got the likes of Jared Bowen, Eze, Anthony Gordon, Cole Palmer, all deputizing and almost making a B-list side that will be the initial A side. So what I'm saying is there won't be formational changes. It will just be the same formation, and he'll just rotate 3, 4, 5 players in by the third group stage game, and that's how he's going to kind of mitigate a lack of energy, fatigue in certain players that have had long Premier League and Champions League campaigns like Jude Bellingham. So that's just how I see it. You have to let me know what you think in the comments down below. Grealish is a travesty. Harry Maguire is okay if he's injured, absolutely fine. Branthwaite's a travesty. I'm sorry. And maybe I'm being too negative, Nancy, going into a tournament, but you want your best playing. And Branthwaite's a better centre-back than Lewis Dunk. He is a better centre-back than Lewis Dunk. So it's wrong. Curtis Jones, absolutely spot on. Obviously, James Trafford as well. James Maddison, spot on. Jack Grealish, a guy who's won 4 Premier League titles. Well, not 4. He's won 3 in a row. He's won the Champions League. He's got the ability to get the ball in the highest pressure circumstances. We don't know enough about Anthony Gordon in those moments. It's not about if Anthony Gordon can beat someone, if he can beat the Serbian right back and knock it across the box. It's about if we're 1-0 up, if we're trying to grind out a win against Germany, the pressure's on. Can you feed Jack Grealish the ball hard into his feet? Can he take the side up the pitch? Yes, he can. Can Gordon do that? Can Eze do that? Where does Eze fit in this? Where does Jared Bowen fit in this? I'm not even talking about Jared Bowen. Where does Jared Bowen fit in this? Where does Ivan Toney fit in this? A third striker in a world where we only play one striker. Third choice striker, like a third choice keeper. That is where it's interesting and slightly concerning that he's got it a little bit wrong. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you very, very soon.